but we also want to get kind of your big picture takeaways. And the very first one seems to be, looking at this from a Superflex perspective, obviously, the situation with the quarterbacks. This draft, though, actually looks pretty exciting. First 6 or 7 picks. And I think that then again, later, it looks like a normal draft, right? I mean, you mentioned there are all these running backs that you can push up ahead of even the second round wide receivers. I mean, normal draft. But from the 108 to the 202, when you're thinking Superflex, where the QBs usually create this extra value and everybody in a Superflex rookie draft is getting a pretty good pick, it seems a little soft. On the other hand, I mean, some guys we've talked about on these 2 shows here are going to be in that range. Is that how you're seeing this? What's your sort of overall sense of 2022 rookie drafts now that we've had the NFL draft?
No, I think you're right. I think the like 107 might be pretty nice because assuming you're not in a league with like just me, Shawn, and a bunch of our friends, then Kenneth Walker might be sitting there at 107 if that's the case. But if it's not a league like that, Kenneth Walker will have already gone potentially at 102, which is just the craziest. Can I get your thoughts on that, Shawn? Kenneth Walker is going 102 right now. It's crazy.
Well, we drafted him, Colm, Connor, Ben, and I had to pick him at the 108 in our live day 3 show because I couldn't get any interest from anybody else. And at the 108, I thought it was a pretty good pick, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty good pick at the 108. Yeah,
I mean, he's going to touch the ball a lot. I'm seeing reports that he might be the starter for them, and I'm thinking to myself, I love Rashad Penny, and that dude could be a top 5 running back, but they drafted this guy where they drafted him. He's a 4.3 40 guy. I mean, it could be the starter. He's going to have 250 touches this year, right? So, I mean, the 102 seems a little optimistic or just structurally unsound.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, so I think the 107 is actually kind of a nice pick this year because you're looking at, you can make your Sky more reach, get kind of, or if you're an Olave guy, he'll always be there. I think one of him or more will always be there. But you get past that point, and I think it's kind of like you have to look at, do you want to be the guy who's taking the quarterback? Because I don't know. I mean, I've taken Justin Herbert. I've taken Daniel Jones. I took a bunch of Zach Wilson. I'm always kind of down to take the guy that everyone else thinks is gross. But normally that guy is like a top 5 NFL draft pick. And everyone's like, nope, he stinks. And I'm like, well, the team cannot move on from him. They can move on from Kenny Pickett. He's the 20th overall pick. If they stink, if they land like a top 10 pick, they can easily, move on. So that concerns me. I don't know that we're getting the same like built-in organizational commitment that like you can trade this guy in a year or 2, no problem, level floor with Kenny Pickett. So you actually have to bet on him to be good, which I don't like doing. And then you have Malik Willis, where it's the exact opposite, where you're like, I do want to bet on him to be good, but at what cost? And I'm seeing his ADP at like the late first. I think if that's going to be the price, I want to take some Malik Willis. I think as soon as he sees the field, we're going to get really excited. I think it takes like 2 games and we're going to be like, oh my God. Once he starts, he's going to be a star. So, at the same time though, you really prefer him to be more like the 212 for like the upside to risk ratio with him. And he's probably gonna be like the 112. Rachaad White is probably going to be, I think I had him at the 201 when I was talking to Davis. He thought that was hilariously high. I've since moved him to the 112. so if anything, I'm starting to get a little more bullish. Christian Watson's there, which is like such a boom bust type of pick. You can make your James Cook bet, which I don't love, but comes with draft capital. So yeah, I agree. I mean, it's kind of like you pick your reach, or you kind of grab the guy you don't love, but you're kind of playing the ADP game. which isn't always my favorite thing to do in Dynasty because our rookie draft ADPs aren't usually that great.
You touched on a couple of the quarterbacks there when you talked about Willis, but I've had a couple of rookie drafts so far, and the quarterbacks are going very, very late. It would seem. I took like a Sam Howell in a draft today at 311. So I think that that's super flex, and I think we're seeing a lot of these guys that are going to fall. And are you interested in the late second round, early third, in some of those quarterback options, or are you seeing other options that you want to pick there over them?
I think particularly Corral. If you can get Corral in the late second, that is really, really intriguing to me. Sam Darnold is really bad, and
Facts.
It's an okay team. If he can take over as the starter, he could be like okay right out of the gate. I think he has a decent ceiling, and I liked him better than Desmond Ridder to begin with. So, and you also do wonder like why Corral fell. It doesn't seem like it's all related to his tape evaluation, which creates a situation where if he's going to be good, he could be really good. So I'm a fan of drafting Corral. I have him ranked much higher than the late second. Have him kind of more as like a mid to early second type of super flex pick. And then I have Ridder is kind of like a mid to late second super flex pick. So I'd be totally fine with him at the end of the second. I think that'd be a really nice value. That's just more of like just a bet on, he'll probably start at some point. I'm not a big Ridder fan, but at some point I just got to be humble with these quarterbacks. We don't know. And then Sam Howell, I liked Sam Howell a lot, but the NFL does not like this guy. He went after Bailey Zappi. So I got him in the third. If you get him at 311, like absolutely. But even in like the 211, 212 range, I think I'm going elsewhere.
It was interesting you mentioned the Rachaad White one because in our ranking summit, I found myself in the very uncomfortable position of having to be the lowest guy on both White and George Pickens. And I'm just like, those dudes are buried. It's like, there's a limit to how high we can have them, right? But in the projection of where they're going, I had that in the same general area. It's interesting to hear you say Willis still in the first because he feels more blocked than the other guys. We talked about it when you were on the show the other day and how that can work out pretty quickly, but I'm interested to see how that goes. I have the 112, Pat, and I think maybe like the 205 and 207 or maybe 207 and 212 in the Black Crown, and my quarterbacks are Jimmy Garoppolo and Jordan Love. If I have a shot at Pickett or Willis there, you're saying I should take one of them?
I mean, I would in your shoes, I would take Pickett. It's like live to see another day at that point. I mean, come on, you gotta get a quarterback who's gonna make some starts. Yeah, I mean, like if Willis was going in the mid second, I would be psyched. I would be taking a lot of him. But I think probably to the market's credit, he's like a tad overpriced because we should probably be like, you should have to think twice about a guy like Willis because the ceiling is so high for fantasy. It's not just that he runs, it's that he's got this incredible deep ball ability too. And I also think that landing in the Tennessee situation, while not ideal from, getting on the field, it's a pretty interesting situation. They know how to use a guy. I mean, Tannehill's a former wide receiver, kind of athletic guy, not a complete quarterback, not the type of guy who sits backs and they're not going to ask him to like make his reads and run a West Coast offense. And he won't have to do that. So I think that if he gets to play, this is a good situation. It's just the guy has to get to play. So I feel like maybe the upside case is basically he's Jalen Hurts and Tannehill's Carson Wentz, and happens a bit sooner than we would have projected. And certainly the way Tannehill played, in the playoffs would suggest that's possible. But more likely, and I said this on the draft stream, Tannehill's kind of a worse Aaron Rodgers, and Malik Willis is Jordan Love, and you just have them sit and sit and sit. But, because Tannehill's not as good as Aaron Rodgers, maybe that journey ends after 2 seasons instead of kind of forever. So I do think, I am really struggling with Willis because I want to draft Malik Willis, but you do get to a point where it's probably a little bit too much. But to your, the larger question is like, what do we even do here, in this range? And I'm talking about taking Rachaad White. You're nervous about him being blocked. I'm not that nervous because Keyshawn Watt's not very good, so he's getting on the field at least in a backup capacity. But there's like a lot of guys. Pickens, I share your concern with. I've moved him like up and down like 5 spots. I don't know where to put Pickens. So Christian Watson, it's like, talk about a boom bust bet. If I'm going to make a boom bust bet, I'm going to make it on a old wide receiver instead of a quarterback in a Superflex league. That seems like a mistake structurally. But why don't I just make it at the quarterback position? So I don't know. Malik Willis probably should be like the 208, but I'll still take him like way ahead of that.
Well, after all these quarterbacks get hurt, you can just play Taylor Heineke again in your Superflex spot.
That's right.
It's interesting that you were mentioning Ritter there because, and this is obviously not what he said, but in his post-draft sort of interviews and whatnot, he was obviously excited to be with the Falcons and was talking about how much he liked Marcus Mariota and, thought that they were similar guys. He more or less got around to describing himself as a poor man's Marcus Mariota, which, if that's the guy you're trying to beat out, then perhaps that's not the.
But he is that's called self-awareness.
Right.
I think that's who he is.
So Pat, if we want to be more positive about this draft, and I think, you kind of already hinted at your response here, but I currently have 4 second-round receivers projected to the second round. So it's 4 reality second-round wide receivers projected to the second round of Superflex drafts, and a couple of more day 2 receivers projected to round 3. Does this mean that the second-round depth is pretty encouraging for fantasy, or should we not be taking these sort of reality reach wide receivers very seriously?
So you're talking, what about John Mechie and Alec Pierce? Those guys,
Thornton, you could, you're going to be able to get the Bears pick in round 4.
Look, man, they asked me to go 50 deep on my rookie rankings, and I was like, okay, but I'm not stopping until Velus Jones isn't in it. And I found a way. Justin Ross signing with the Chiefs was all the excuse I needed. Velus Jones is now 51. No, but I think like Mechie, Pierce, those guys are. I think you do want to draft some of them. We like Mechie. We don't know. I guess I don't know in terms of relative to ADP, but if I can get Mechie in like the early 3rd or something, sure. Alec Pierce in the same range, sure. Like they're probably not very good, but there's reasons to think. I talked about Alec Pierce earlier, but John Mechie. He was buried to start his career, and then Jameson Williams comes in, and like we said, he tears his ACL, still a 12th pick in the draft. So if he has a superstar wide receiver coming in, which we think Jameson Williams has the potential to be, you can't really blame him for not standing out relative to that guy. And he was in a tough spot before that, and then he tears his ACL in December. So it's a curtailed season for him, the one season he really got to show anything. And he still comes out early, and he's still a second-round pick. So there could be something with John Mechie. I think he's probably like a slot receiver type dude, but maybe he's a slot receiver who can, earn targets at a pretty high rate. Is there a chance he could be like a Deontay Johnson type? Probably not. But I do think like he's not like Thornton to me just feels like you're just betting on he ran a 4.28. If he had run like a 4.38, I think I'd be more interested because the only reason he went in the second round is because he ran a 4.28, right? Like there would probably be some better film on him, or maybe the production would be slightly better if he wasn't so blazingly fast. But I think the Patriots just put the blinders on him. We're like 4.28. that's why he's the second round. We know that the NFL tends to overdraft speed. So I view Thornton as a little bit of a different tier than those other guys. Where are you at on him, Shawn?
Well, I mean, Mac Jones that last year at Alabama was pretty effective when he was throwing to guys who were wide open. You don't think Thornton can run by the? I mean, can Mac hit him there? 4.28.
I mean, Mac's pretty accurate. Yeah, I think he can. I don't know how many. Like, is he looking downfield that much? It seems like he's content to throw shorter and intermediate, but I think Mac Jones is like pretty solid. So yeah, I guess that's a good point.
Well, I mean, he's like, they gave me Kendrick Bourne plus these guys who can run like 5-yard routes, so he didn't throw downfield last year. But
Colm, where are you seeing these guys go? Like, is it wishful thinking to think you can get Mechie and Pierce in the early third?
What I've seen, I've had 3 rookie drafts so far, and a couple more starting over the next couple of days, and everything seems to be all over the place. So I think a lot of people are going with certain guys they like, but I've seen players fall dramatically further than I thought they would in terms of what the guys have them ranked on the site, for example. So I do think it's going to vary very much from draft to draft for most leagues, and I think in some of the sharper leagues then we'll see people take shots on them. But I think particularly, as I mentioned, at the quarterbacks, people are passing up on them. But I do think that I don't know if that's the right. There's a bit of a stink on some of these guys that went in the second round, like Mechie, and I think that's going to lead to them falling in the rookie drafts.
Yeah, I don't mind taking cheap shots on those guys.
But where are you on these running backs? Obviously, round 1 depth non-existent, round 2 depth, especially if we're putting White at the 112, non-existent. But by the time you get into round 3, it looks as good as ever to me. Would you be trying to load up in this range? I've even got a few guys I like projected to round 4. And so I know that I've been looking at some of these leagues where I did trade out in the startup 2 years ago, traded out of all of 2022 and all of 2023. And so got a lot of 3rd and 4th round picks, and I'm excited. I'm like, well, I don't need a first rounder in this draft. I've got 3 thirds, so that'll work out just as well. So,
that might be true with the 112. I'd rather have the 3 thirds. I do think there's running back depth. It's not like awesome depth, but there's certainly guys to take stabs on. And we kind of knew this would be the case where the NFL was not treating this the same way that we were, where, heading into the draft, it was like there was really no consensus past the top 2 guys. No one really, except, me with White, no one like really, really liked a guy. But the NFL was still going to draft them, and that's what happened. So yeah, I think you do want to take your stabs on Zamir White and your Tyrion Davis Price, even though both those guys have seemed pretty uninspiring. Where are the breakout? Where the breakaway numbers, guys? Come on. Pierre Strong, though. Pierre Strong's pretty interesting. He's Damian Harris is a free agent after the year. They clearly are just going to keep kind of churning, but like, if you're going to be in a committee, to be able to hit big runs is going to be a must, and Pierre Strong looks like he's going to be able to do that. Kyron Williams is someone who's like, even like if I'm looking at a late 3rd, early 4th type situation, he's on a good offense. He got a little bit more capital than I was worried he might. Like, it seemed like maybe he's a 7th rounder after the combine. So he gets 5th round pick. I think he's still kind of in the mix. And I know you've got some guys, Shawn. Like, you're in on Ty Chandler, right?
Yeah, I think that the situation there could be good. We're looking at Beatty here with J.K. Dobbins, and those 2 guys just tearing the roof off in Baltimore. So, for all the Dobbins shares, I'm pretty excited to back him up with a back with that profile. I was going to ask about Strong because, it appears to me at this point that the Patriots have drafted too many backs to keep them all. Is there a chance that he doesn't make the team and can go somewhere better?
Probably not. Because, they just had Damian Harris sit for an entire year. And when most NFL teams, if that happens to you, you're done. But the Patriots they just redshirted him. They just straight up redshirted him. We could see the same thing happen with Pierre Strong, which, it's a bit of a frustrating situation because normally you get the information, the team doesn't like him, it's time to move on. But if you draft Pierre Strong, you got to hold him through the start of 2023 to see, if he actually gets a shot.
But does that mean you also have to use your 4th round pick on Kevin Harris and also hold him through the
No, I don't think you have to pick, because Strong has a profile that suggests he can do some pretty exciting things.
Like
he's
passes.
not like what'd you say?
Like the halfback passes.
Yeah, right. What was the stat? He's thrown for like
9 for 9, 6 touchdowns.
Oh my God. That's actually true with the Patriots. They'll probably use him on some of that. But he can catch a little bit, and he's got that breakaway ability. He's athletic, decent size. He could be Damian Harris, he could be skinny LeGarrette Blount or something. He's like, we know kind of the archetype they're going to put him in. He probably won't catch passes for the Patriots because they just seem truly committed to you catch passes and you never catch passes. So they split it up. I don't know why they do it, but he'll be the you never catch passes guy probably. And then Ramondre Stevenson would be kind of moving into like a James White type role maybe next year. So, I think you could pretty easily see like Strong as Harris, Ramondre is kind of that pass catcher type next year. There's a possibility of that. And you're going to get a pretty cheap shot at, seeing if that is actually the way they play it. But if you don't like that, I think there's plenty of other guys. Zamir White, it's another play in 2023 where you're just like, basically, the C's part and it's just Zamir White left. You can trade him at that point. You don't gotta sit through free agency in the draft. Like if it's clear that Josh Jacobs is out and they're talking up Zamir White as their 2023 starter, you are allowed to trade this guy away. So, I'm not quite as interested in the Kevin Harris, Jerome Ford type. Hassan Haskins, just being on the Titans, is like that alone makes me like mildly interested in him in like the late 4th. Does he do anything for you?
Well, he was a better player, I think, than people realize, and that role I think could be pretty valuable. He's someone I think is much more interesting just to take shots in best ball really than having him as part of your dynasty portfolio. I was going to ask you, are you backing up your Ronald Jones shares? You were talking about breakaway rush score, and the Chiefs have a guy coming in who is very fast and I think also rushed for like 2 yards per carry in college.
Yeah, Pacheco, right? He's the Roto World Slack erupted, and it is still called the Slack is still named Roto World, even though the site is not. But the Slack was just angry, truly angry when they selected. He sucks. So, no, I don't have much enthusiasm for him, and it does make me feel a little bit better about my Ronald Jones shares. One guy though, Keontae Ingram, the Cardinals guy, they took in the 6th. I know this is an Eno Benjamin show, but
Shawn covers his eyes.
There's certainly opportunity, certainly opportunity. Is he just? He could be. I could see him making like a zero running back type article. Shawn, do you agree with that?
Yeah, we'll have to back burner that, but there's a lot of potential there. Yeah, you got to have exposure to your Cardinals because, James Conner's going to play 6 weeks. He's going to score 27 points per game, and then you're going to have to make do with Benjamin and Ingram. So,
they're just going to trade for Kareem Hunt or something when that happens.
Oh well, that's exciting. Yeah, I'll have to